Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Michelle Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the strategies behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Keyonna Taylor, the founder and virtual chief strategy officer of Key Focus Group, joining us. With over 20 years of experience in customer success and client experience, Keyonna has led global teams managing over $100 million in revenue and has driven transformations for enterprises worldwide. Since founding Key Focus Group in 2017, she's helped businesses optimize their CS strategies, achieving results like a 30% churn reduction and 20% adoption growth through data-driven frameworks. We'll explore her founding story, how Key Focus Group is reshaping customer success, and her vision for scaling this boutique consultancy. So with that being said, let's dive in. Keyonna, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to dive in. So let's kick things off for our listeners. Take us back to the beginning. What specific problem within the customer success or client experience landscape, maybe around churn or operational inefficiencies, inspired you to start Key Focus Group?
Ooh, so many. I would say that dates back to Rackspace when I started at Rackspace, which was amazing just because their whole value foundation was based on fanatical support
Mm.
and it aligned with my values, right? So being able to start Key Focus Group really allowed me to stay aligned with my values and delivering high quality, high level service for all clients and not diminishing that over time.
Love that. Now, let's walk through how Key Focus Group's offer has evolved since you started. How would you provide like journey mapping or leadership training, and who you serve, such as tech or enterprise clients, changed over time?
Well, just a clarification, I, along with a partner, founded First 30 Seconds in 2017. And Key Focus is an evolution of that, focusing on customer success, which actually just launched at the very beginning of this year. So I've been able to comprise or have a vantage point of multiple businesses, as well as work with some really great enterprises globally.
Mm.
But with this particular one, it really allowed us to start a solution that was zero overhead for other companies. And the why behind that is there are smaller businesses that are not strategic or enterprise level that
Mm.
could truly benefit from having a customer success strategy, and many don't have it to implement. So that is a cause, not the only cause, but that I'm speaking to CS in particular, contributes to a cause of why businesses do not succeed over time. I'm sure you're probably going to ask more questions, but the long and short of it is if you are not keeping your current clients while also growing and acquiring new clients, then you have a flat growth. And that can quickly become negative revenue soon with costs of running a business and staff, et cetera. So my focus on customer success, I want not just the strategic and enterprise level businesses to have access to that, but also smaller businesses and also across verticals. So not just tech anymore, we're serving multiple other verticals.
I love to hear that. And that's exactly now some of the trends we're seeing in CS, where beyond just SaaS and software, and I was talking about it with an ex-colleague of mine the other day, a customer-centric approach and strategy is much needed, especially in spaces like healthcare, as you probably have tapped into, and some of these other industries where you're dealing with end users, right? And as you said best, companies need to focus more on the back end and how they can start to expand the revenue rather than just focusing on just acquisition. How do we fulfill? How do we create LTV from our customer base? So what's like on that note, like what's been like one misconception people often have about customer success consulting, especially like around its value to businesses or its scalability that you'd like to address?
I would say return on investment. I
Mm.
think that's a huge one. There is always a return on investment, and I shouldn't say always, there should always be.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you have the right strategy, then you should absolutely see an ROI. How do you see that ROI?
Mm.
Well, you should be able to look at not only churn numbers, right? But if you're not calculating and you're not tracking churn,
Mm,
That's a problem. And I don't care what industry or vertical you're in, what are your quarter over quarter numbers?
mm,
And you can start to use baseline to look at that analytically and from a data perspective to
mm,
say, how are those numbers tracking? If
mm.
they're flat or going down, then it gives you an opportunity to address the gap. But
Yeah.
many people in other verticals outside of SaaS and tech do not know what those numbers are. Another piece is retention.
Mm,
What is your retention rate? If you're doing your job well, it should be well above 90%.
yeah.
And if it's not, what is your strategy to increase your retention rate? So you're wanting to reduce churn, you're wanting to increase retention. And then there's also another aspect of CS. It's not sales because it is truly a consultative approach. You're
Exactly.
working with a client throughout the life cycle. If you're really putting the client's needs first, how they're adopting the service or product in whatever industry you're in, and you're being a trusted advisor, then it's very natural to have a conversation about any other needs. And if
Mm,
you're a trusted advisor, they should be communicating those needs to you first because they have a trust built with you, which
mm,
gives you the first opportunity at filling those needs. And with filling those needs come revenue. Or if you're not offering it, should that be on your roadmap? Should you build that into the service or solution you have? And
mm,
if not, and that's not an intention or that's not aligned to your initiatives, then
mm,
at least have other partnerships and relationships that you're able to refer them to someone else or another business that you truly trust, and
mm.
it keeps that trust intact.
Yeah, very well said. The ROI component, I think that's one of the biggest things that make companies, even with customer success teams, often hesitant about investing in those departments and those resources. But like you said, it's not necessarily about sales, it's really about the value that you can provide and letting the value drive those relationships. I know that's probably on your mind as well. So, definitely one of those topics where I'm super passionate about it and I'm so excited to learn more about the nuts and bolts of the offering that you have. So, with that being said, for our listeners and even some potential clients and companies that are tuning in, walk us through how Key Focus Group generates revenue today. What's the core offer like CS strategy or operational consulting, and how do you structure it for your clients, such as SaaS firms or some of the other verticals that you're looking to tap into, as you said?
We have three core offerings. We have Focus Infinity,
Mhm,
which is the biggest core offering because it's life cycle. We really look and invest upfront in understanding where are your gaps, where are the opportunities for growth. Are there process efficiencies, SOPs, or best practices that are missing that will allow the business to run more efficiently and to address your market or your portfolio of clients? We
mhm,
look at tiering those clients. Who is going to get more of a digital touch? Meaning,
mhm,
how do you scale maybe one to many or take care of them in a digital space? And
mhm,
then who are your kind of mid-market relative to your portfolio and who are your enterprise level relative to your portfolio? And really identifying what does that strategy look like for each one? And then
mhm,
what's also most important is identifying what is the continuum of value that you can deliver to each segment of client, right?
mhm,
Because that keeps them with you and retains. We have two other opportunities to help businesses. One is Key Start. Key
mhm,
Start is the initial consultation in which we partner with our direct client
mhm,
to close the deal, meaning
mhm,
we're able to articulate the post-sale value pre-sale so
mhm,
that the potential client or prospect understands the value they'll get post-sale. And
mhm,
then Key Foundations is more of an education, meaning we come in, we consult, we teach them what CS strategy should entail. We teach them how to look at their tech stack and how to keep data and information that's relative to a customer success framework and customer success plan so that you
mhm.
can track some of the deliverables or all the deliverables with
Yeah.
performance indicators, all the other metrics, if there's SLAs,
Mhm,
all those things, right? And then how do you leverage AI or
mhm,
automation to make that data or knowledge base very efficient, both for the client, if there is a client-facing knowledge base, and internally. So when you're helping a client face to face, that information is bubbled up very quick and you can use that time efficiently. And
Mm,
then we teach and scale their teams, and then we're done. So the Focus Infinity's life cycle, and then the key foundations and key start are consultative. So we have a consultative arm, and then we have our CS where we actually do the work, and it's
mm.
the life cycle component of a business's organization.
I love that. That was just, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, you key focus group, from what it sounds like, there's so many different arms, and you really are tapping into all areas of how companies and firms can develop out their CS strategy on the life cycle side, but also with recruiting and building those teams in place and finding good talent, which is phenomenal because I haven't seen anything like this. You're beyond just being the subject matter expert, you're offering a ton with the implementation. Now, building on your growth, how are you currently getting in front of some of the SMBs and mid-market enterprise businesses you're working with? Which channels have been the most effective? Has it been LinkedIn, like your global network, referrals? What's been the most effective for landing clients for CS consulting services?
I think that's a fun question because it's all the above.
Right.
I think if you're, for anyone who's looking for long-term success, you have to always be networking, right? You have to be in the room. You have to be willing to connect with the right people, your ideal client profile, and know how to connect with them. And there are various channels. There's LinkedIn, of course, right? There's various social media channels, but depending on who your ideal client profile is, a lot of them may not apply, right? You may have a presence there, but know that there's really not going to be any true outcomes from that. But also networking in person. I think post-COVID, it's probably one of the nicer things is to be able to actually have a conversation at a networking event and really be able to support each other, understanding maybe what some of your peers are doing in their industry or in their space. How can they help you? How can you help them? And really forging some really great partnerships and also understanding who's in your network that you can that are warm leads.
Yeah.
I've been in the space for 20 years. It's just natural to start there because you already have a trust built with them. So that should always be your first kind of line or channel is to leverage your warm network, educate them on what you're doing. Most of them probably already know what you've done in the past, but then how does it apply to them today?
Mm.
For example, Key Focus Group it's unique because there is no overhead. They're
Yeah.
not paying the salary plus the vacation plus the additional benefits, right? Or workers' comp or disability or the things that are layered on for a full salary.
Mm.
In this landscape of economy where we are today, or in a good economy. It doesn't really matter. The whole point of running a business is how do you create efficiencies and how do you optimize your budget? So whether it's a great economy or as we are experiencing today, unfortunately, we can, in essence, make it recession proof, right? I mean, you can only go so far, but you're able to truly optimize your costs because there's no overhead and you're signing NDAs, all those things that are confidential to inside of your company would apply the same with Key Focus Group. Our success is your success, and also holding confidential information would be the same as if you hired internally.
Yeah, no, I love that you mentioned that because I think one of the things that is 100% underrated is really like diversification of acquisition, but really tapping into the network aspect of it. And it seems that you've connected with the right people and you're already making a ton of strides in so many different verticals. Now, post acquisition, when it comes to that sales approach, you did mention already internally you're doing a lot of consultative selling, but a lot more of that value driving, which is needle moving through some of these conversations. What strategies have been like the most effective in your experience converting leads into like long-term clients? Are you leveraging your thought leadership, industry events, partnerships? Also, are you a one-woman show or do you have like a team right now that's also involved in the conversations?
The great thing is I have a team,
Right.
which is wonderful. It's not just me. And if part of my team know that they're extremely important. And I think that helps not only build morale, but you never eat alone. I have an advisory board that has more tenure than I do across expertise that is able to contribute to each and every client when I'm able to communicate with them and talk about how do we strategize? Are we looking at this from a quality perspective, from a CS perspective, from a financial perspective? It's just a holistic view, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's important. And then other pieces of that is your team that is in CS, right? How do you handle the data part? Now, for key focus group, there's some secret sauce to it, so I won't give all the information, but I will tell you what's typical. What is typical is you look at what are the gaps of the client, right?
Mm,
Where could they be monetizing some things? Where's their revenue today? And what is that forecast to look like? Where are those opportunities so that forecast is met? What are their churn numbers? And
mm,
being able to really tap into all those metrics to understand them, absorb them, assess them, and then deliver a different outcome.
mm,
But we look at some other things outside of the client that
mm,
impact those numbers.
mm,
And that's the secret sauce of working with KFG
mm,
is it's not just our client that matters. There are outside
mm,
components that we really dive into that contribute to our clients' outcomes. It gives us a really holistic view of where they are and where they need to be, and not just where they need to be, how do they stay on the cutting edge? Because if you are not doing it right, something
mm,
can sneak up, a company can take over the share of wallet.
mm.
Netscape and Microsoft is a huge example of that. Nobody knows Netscape anymore. Who is Netscape,
Yeah.
right? They provided internet service. They were a multi-billion dollar company
Mm,
until Microsoft came in and offered an internet browser for free because they monetize other benefits that the consumer would actually pay for. If Netscape would have had customer success, we would have been gleaning feedback. We would have been even gleaning feedback from the customers soon as that rolled out, or if we heard that it was rolling out. How do
yeah.
we pivot? They could
Yeah.
have been offered it for free and then started looking at what are other revenue generating
Yeah.
items or products or services that can close the gap. They would have kept going and they had the funds
Mm,
to keep going. But without a CS strategy, a $1 billion company is no longer existent, and most people don't remember who they are.
yeah.
You never want to be forgotten after that much effort just by forgetting to add one component
Mm.
to your business or enterprise, and that is customer success.
So well said. Right now, it's music to any CEO's ears when you're able to get in the room with them and talk to them about the gaps in their revenue and what they're missing out on potentially. And especially with early stage companies that are maybe bootstrap funded, there's a lot of untapped potential, and we see it all the time where not enough of that investment is really made into customer success and those initiatives. And I love the fact that you said it so well is how can we start to look into those things, and like that was the perfect example with Microsoft versus Netscape, and who knows where that would have ended up. So I love the fact that from what it sounds like you have such a great understanding of forecasting and you've achieved such incredible results from what we've read, like 100% renewal rates, even like a 12% year over year growth, which is like phenomenal for like any startup founder. If there was like maybe one bottleneck that stood out, what would it be right now within the company? Is it also maybe attracting like the right types of firms and businesses to work with, scaling the fulfillment side, your team as well, maybe with acquisition and sales? What are you most focused on right now to keep this momentum going?
Education. And the reason why I say education is because all those components that you mentioned are applicable,
Mm,
right? They're all challenges for any business on a continual basis. The reason why I mention education is because since tech, right, hardware, software is the typical vertical that you see customer success, that's where it started. The other verticals don't understand how to apply a CS strategy and how it can benefit them. So we talk about healthcare. Most of the time, where you see CS in healthcare is healthcare as a service. So we're still talking about software. We're not talking about medical facilities. We're not having as many conversations with clinicians, right? Or specialists,
mm,
oncology facilities. There's so many different benefits really that could be derived in the
mm,
healthcare space, pharmaceuticals, life science, and medical devices.
yeah,
How are they using the devices?
yeah,
Tracking the success rate,
mm,
tracking outcomes, tracking patient outcomes, maybe voice of the patient versus voice of the customer. At the end of the day, it's the same, but just like you would track voice of the customer for a tech or
Mm,
any other vertical, you would do the same thing for healthcare,
yeah.
especially since cancer seems to be coming up so aggressively. It's like the new flu or cold. It's
Yeah.
a lot of people are impacted by that.
Yeah.
What is their experience? And then what are the gaps for the doctors or the specialists or the surgeons? We don't know a lot because they don't feel like it's necessary to track it. So that's why education is so, so critical. And we're also over verticals like manufacture energy,
Mm,
green energy to help save the planet. What is the ozone layer? Like all those things that can help keep the earth healthy, right? It's not going to be perfect, right? But some of those things are also critical, and a lot of people are passionate about that, as we are. Sustainability is, I think, on the mind of many people, especially when you have the next generation coming. You're like, how is it going to look for them? And then there's other verticals that we offer, the public sector,
yeah.
state, cities. COVID was a great example.
Mm,
A lot of people left more expensive areas to go to lower cost areas. So
mm,
those expensive cities or states lost tax dollars. Why? Because those people left. So
mm,
are they maintaining the same deliverables for their citizens or the community? Where can we close the gap? Where are there opportunities to have people move back? There's just so many different ways and slices that you could dissect it,
mm.
look at it, plan a strategy, execute the strategy, and then create a foundation to start comparing all the results quarter over quarter, year over year, and look at that growth, realize.
Yeah, absolutely. With healthcare, especially making up 3% of the GDP in all countries, it is one of the fastest growing industries. And customer success is very much overlooked. And there's not enough of that, especially when you're dealing with the patients at the end of the day and the clinical outcomes and the type of care that you can deliver to them. Having the voice of the customer, like you said, being emphasized, it's absolutely needed when you're dealing with the health of people and even with some of the other verticals you mentioned. So, I love everything you've accomplished so far and the thought leadership, the education that you're providing now beyond just like the software world is pivotal and it's so innovative. What's top of mind right now though for you to grow Key Focus Group over the next 6 to 12 months? Like what does that runway look like this year?
Turning education into action. So people actually have to act on what they're learning and understanding how do we create that urgency,
Mhm.
right? So that they see the value and actually want to realize the value by making the decision to implement. So over the next 6 to 12 months, it's to turn that around, start creating some events. We have an event coming up next month, May 22nd, specific for the healthcare vertical. And that's an education piece, but it's also hopefully a channel that will drive action and really just being more visible, right? There's a lot of events that come to different areas. There's a lot of specialist events. There's aviation, there's healthcare, and really diving into that and leveraging not just the warm network, but
Mm,
really after the education, closing the loop with those people, following up and showing them the value that they can derive. Because I think that's the bottom line. We have to be making money to stay in business. So
yeah.
people need to see what is the true value and how does that benefit me today? And what does that projection look like, to your point, for Key Focus Group in 6, 12, 24, 36 months down the road? And we want to show people what having a CS strategy can
Mm,
actually do for their revenue growth.
yeah.
That dotted line helps them to understand the value. And so we want to see action on that. So these businesses can survive any kind of economic landscape that we're in. And then as maybe it improves or doesn't, they still continue to see success.
Yeah, absolutely. Without even necessarily having to spend so much dollars up front, right? I think CS is so powerful in creating organic revenue and organic means of retaining customers. So, one more question on this front, and we'll wrap up and get into the lightning round. Want to get a little bit hypothetical here. I love that you're focused on driving ROI through CS, and that's really what we've been focusing on over the last few minutes. If you had a genie in the room, you rubbed the lamp, and poof, now you have all these unlimited resources. What would you implement immediately to accelerate Key Focus Group's growth?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think there would be a couple different components, right? I think I'd have a full business development team that would be hyper focused not only in really talking about key focus groups solution, but also talking about our client solutions, right? Because it can become a domino effect. And even client by client, that's something that we're going to start implementing in 2026 is implementing not just our kind of posts and communication, but also phoning in our clients as well, where it's okay to do that and where there's no NDA or there's a reason to not.
Yeah.
And then really moving the needle on also key foundations because if people want to have captive teams, it still gives them a really good leg up to implement that internally and be educated on what that strategy should look like, how
Mm,
they tier, right, their clients, and then how they execute that in the most optimal way.
mm,
And then also communicating kind of marketing or engagements, a piece of that roadmap per se, just because people also don't understand that when they actually implement a CS strategy, they're also getting ahead of their competition. And
mm,
just like that mention of Netscape and Microsoft,
mm,
it's almost like you don't know what you don't know,
mm,
but that can be critical when it's too late. They
mm,
come in and just swipe it and you're no longer there.
yeah.
So staying on the cutting edge of what you deliver,
Mm,
what your clients or customers or patients or community want, and being able to deliver that faster and better than
mm,
your contemporaries or your competition. And if
mm.
I could drive home and that be like my one wish is that they understand that and how critical it is not to delay having that strategy implemented.
Yeah, learning from the examples of the past, the history.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate, right? A lot of startups, they do not end up getting to their potential because they miss out on that, right? So, like you said, the education is so key, and I'm super excited to keep following the journey that, and the movement you're leading right now to really deliver CS solutions, but also the impact that CS can bring in so many different verticals, as you mentioned. It's a global movement from what it sounds like. Now, for the listeners, entrepreneurs, and founders that are also looking to follow in your footsteps, and we do have a few individuals in CS that are probably also tuning in, what's the best piece of advice you've received about scaling a CS consulting business, perhaps from like your years leading global teams or elsewhere? What would you say to the audience?
Keep learning. I
Mm,
think that's the main piece. It's not just about innovation and technology that can change, because honestly, it's going to always be there. It's
mm,
going to empower, if used properly, it will empower us to do better
yeah.
and faster and more efficiently. But never forget that relationships need to be nurtured. Keep learning, stay in the know. One of the things I'll share is I set triggers, right? So whatever browser you use, if it's Google or whatever, set alerts. If there's an industry or that you're following, or if you're wanting to be in CS, pick a handful of clients, follow them, create Google alerts so that you'll get it in the email and then learn what they're doing.
Mm,
What does their CS strategy look like? And that may look differently for some, but if you do that, you'll look at some information that communicates their financials. So it's like, okay, they have the right strategy, their financials are tracking the right direction. There's a lot of communication from their CEO, CFO, CIO. I look at the CFO and what they say a lot. And the reason why is CEOs and COOs, they're looking at a lot of the operational pieces, but
mhm,
the chief financial officers need to consume, is this generating revenue? Where do
mm,
we optimize? What's the ROI?
yeah.
CFO is a huge one. And the CSO, the chief sales officer. If you look at those two leaders within a company, they'll give you a lot of insights as to what their CS strategy looks like, or if they're not paying attention at all to their CS strategy. So it can give you an indication of any. Setting those triggers and looking at them, the leaders and how they're executing is critical. It gives you a whole lot of insights. And at the same time, not only are you learning about the company
Mm,
or the strategy, you also learn about how they implementing technology or AI. So you
mm.
get almost like a kind of a holistic education by doing
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to what you were mentioning earlier with your core offerings being a lot of that AI automation and some of those system building that applies not only to CSMs within their role, but also on like a very holistic level, as you had mentioned, with like the team's efficiency, the productivity, and the ways in which delivery can be streamlined within customer success for an organization. So I love that we just had like a full circle moment there, going back to the beginning. Really remarkable work. We're excited to keep following your journey. So on that note, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Keyonna, thank you so much for just sharing your incredible journey and work so far within CS and leading $100 million plus revenue teams globally and transforming customer success. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.